How's everybody doing out there in lockdown? Doing great here in California. I'm here doing cardio, and I started thinking, I've had a bunch of emails lately and text of people asking me some questions about some work that I've done recently, and I thought, I think the story could be somewhat beneficial maybe, or motivational, so why not share it? Try to be a positive guy. So I recently booked the movie that's on Amazon, Embattled, as the ring announcer. And like most of the stuff I've booked out here, it always comes with a story, right? So this one's got a story too. And the story on this one, How I Booked Embattled, is a tale of, how do I say this? Go hard or go home. If you want to run with the big dogs, you got to get off the porch. I was just like, I got to go for it. So my buddy Matt hits me up. He's like, hey, can you do me a favor? And normally when I get calls to say like, hey, can you do me a favor? It's usually to come move a couch, right? I talk to my buddy Kazzy about this all the time. He's like, usually when anyone calls me saying they need a favor, they usually need my truck. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm figuring, all right, Matt needs me to come move something. Cool, I got time. So I'm like, well, what's up? What do you need? And he's like, well, there's a table read for a movie tonight that I'm helping, do some production with. And they need somebody to come in and read some of the like basic parts, like custodian, this, that, the other thing. And he's like, look, man, it's not guaranteeing your role or anything. It's in West Hollywood at 5 o'clock, and this is on a Friday. And for those of you that live in California or live in LA, Glendale to West Hollywood at 5 o'clock, 5:30 on a Friday. Yeah. Anybody else? Try to think at least an hour in the car to go maybe 5 miles. So that was loads of fun. So I was like, I don't care. That's fine. Whatever. I totally love to do it. He's like, well, I didn't tell you. And I'm like, what are you going to tell me? And he's like, the director, the producers, and the writer are going to be there. And I was like, well, all right, that's cool. And I'm like, what kind of a movie is this? Like, I have no idea what's going on. And he's like, a movie, and he's telling me about Embattled. He's like, it's this MMA champ who's kind of a deadbeat, drunken dad, but he's a really good fighter. And he winds up fighting his son. And, at the same time, his other son has got Williams disease, or Williams syndrome. And just like all this drama going on with it, I'm like, wow, it sounds like a movie that I would actually like want to watch. So I was like, oh, of course I would go do this. And then he says to me, and I'm a movie buff. I grew up, I could take this for a tour over here and show you my movie collection over here, my DVDs and VHS. But that being said, he tells me who the writer is. He's like, it's David McKenna. And of course I knew who that was. I was like, oh, it's David McKenna. He did American History X. He wrote that, and he also wrote the Johnny Depp movie Blow, which I'm big fans of both movies. So I was like, he's going to be in the room? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, wow. If you ever need a favor, I'm your guy. So I go over there, and we sit down to the table read, and all the producers are there, the director. There's David McKenna, his son. I think he wrote this with his son in mind. His son has Williams syndrome. He's actually the one that plays the younger brother in the movie. So he's there, and everyone's getting ready to do the table read. Stephen Dorff wasn't there. Elizabeth Reeser wasn't there. They had a few other people like fill-ins. And then it's mine. Well, here comes the lesson part. So in Hollywood, you got to do whatever you can to get your foot in the door somehow, right? I mean, unless you've got a family in the industry or whatever. I came out here as a high school English teacher. I knew one dude in the state of California. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know anybody. So you have to do what you can to set yourself apart from the crowd. Well, right off the bat, it sounded like it was a big deal even going to the table read. He's like, most actors wouldn't go to that. I'm like, well, most actors are idiots then, because why wouldn't you go to a table read? Even if you're not going to get a role. That's basically, this is what you pay for workshops for, to get in front of people like this. So we do the table, sorry, cardio, COVID bod. So I go over to the table read, we're sitting there, and always get there early. So I get there a good 15 minutes early, went in, you grab a cup of coffee, sat down, I start reading the script. I wanted to know what's going on. I wanted to know what's going to happen. And I'm just sitting here going, oh man. All my roles were like announcers, ring announcers, ESPN analysts, all this kind of stuff. So it goes around the first time, and there's a scene where, again, I'm filling in for those of you that are watching that don't know anything about acting, what a table read is, it's basically everybody gets around the table and reads the script. So you read who you play. And I was doing all, not the stars, but like everybody else. So one of it comes across, we start reading, And one of the ones that I first started with, it was a thing going back and forth between Steve. Remember, this is a sports movie about MMA. Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman are going back and forth. So I'm like, and people are reading their lines. It's nothing overly dramatic, and I'm like, again, foot in door here. Really got to show them what I got. So it's Stephen A. Smith, who's an ESPN personality, and the line was something like, "Max Kellerman, you out your goddamn mind." And I said it just like that. And then Max is like, "Now, Stephen A., just wait on a second." And I start doing this a little bit, and I could see a little bit of eyebrows raising. Well, it moves along to what I'd been waiting for, and I knew what I was going to do. And I'm like, you know what? I got one shot at this. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to kick me out. So it comes to my part as the ring announcer, and again, everyone's reading and just reading like this, and then I woke up this morning and made breakfast, and where was the cat, So then I come along, "Ladies and gentlemen," and I did the whole thing, "the Slayer Liquid." So I'm doing this whole thing in the table read. And everyone's you can just see them kind of doing like, what's happening here? I just kept doing the whole thing the way, there are three, for those of you that watched the movie or plan on it, there's 3 fight scenes. And I had to do the 3 fight scenes, along with the custodian and Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith. So, get done with the table read, shake everybody's hand. Nice to meet you, thanks. I'm just a guy that showed up to read for my buddy Matt, who needed a favor that I'm glad it wasn't a couch that I had to move. Left. 15 minutes later, I'd say, I'm driving back. Lord knows, for anyone knowing, you're leaving West Hollywood about 7, going to Glendale. There's still some pretty good residual traffic on the road. So I'm not going anywhere fast. My buddy hits me up, and he's like, "Dude, what'd you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, man, what'd I do? I'm sorry. I'm sorry." He's like, "They loved you. The producers were like, who is this guy?" And he's like, "Well, it's my buddy Mike, And he said that they were like, "This is great." And he's like, "You're probably going to get cast in something. I'm not sure what it is." And I was like, "Awesome. That's cool." Now, acting tip for those of you watching that might be asking acting questions. I'll tell you this much right now. When I finish an audition or something like that happens, I've trained myself to completely forget about it. Because if you sit here and think about this stuff, I don't know if you guys ever saw, sometimes I do movie references, but the movie Swingers from like the mid-90s with John Favreau and Vince Vaughn, like they're out playing golf one day, and the one guy, Ron Livingston, is talking about, "Yeah, man, I had an audition like 3 weeks ago to play Goofy. It's Goofy and Disney," and all they're going back and forth, worrying about an audition, praying to God they get a call back or get called 3 weeks later. And I'm like, I don't need stress like that in my life. So as soon as I finish the audition, I forget about it. So I'd forgotten about this, totally. I'm like, cool. I'm glad I impressed them. If they hit me up with something awesome, but it's Hollywood, I'll believe it when I'm in a limo going to the airport. Well, get a call back from Matt. Seems like it's about a week later, so he's like, "Guess what?" And I'm like, "You need another favor?" He's like, "Nah, you booked the role of Richie Simmonsma, the announcer." And I was like, "You're kidding me." He's like, "Nope, you did it." I was like, I love table reads. I was like, "That's great." So I got pretty stoked about that. Of course, the first thing I did is made my own backstory, as far as like where my name was and all this, because it does sound a lot like Richard Simmons. And my name was Richard Simmons, but I changed it to my Italian name, Simmonsma. And then I go by Richie, so it's Richie Simmonsma. Not to be confused with Richard Simmons. But anyway, so I book it, and that's great. And sure enough, it was September. Yeah, it was September. And that's when I had to film a week in Birmingham, which was awesome. But it happened. I got picked up in a limo. I went to the airport, flew first. This was my first experience like that, I've done shows, I've done movies, but it's never been where you're getting picked up in a limo. And I was like, wow. And then I get to Birmingham, and I'd never been there before. And I'm automatically like, this is just, wow. Like, I really, really, really liked it down there. And I think the reason I liked it so much is the people. People were so friendly, and it was cool to see them being somebody that was there working. Like, I'm going there to work, and, I don't look at myself as I'm coming into work on the project. I'm like, I'm coming into work, and let's see what you guys are all about too. And they were just so like, the idea that a movie was being filmed in their hometown, the passion they had for it would have been the same passion I had for it if a movie was filmed in my hometown. This is the coolest thing, because I'm a fan of movies. suppose that's why I wanted to be an actor. But yeah, I just thought that was just to see their enthusiasm and see how much like this is so great. And I could see with the economy, I was one of the people supporting it. You know, every night I would, when we're finished filming, they had those bicycles out there, and I'd take a bike and just go all over the city the days I had off, just going into places, getting boiled peanuts, which is a must if you're in Birmingham, at the Alabama Peanut Company. I swear to God, it's the edamame of the South. But I digress. But anyway, that's my story, how I booked in battle. Basically, can you go to a table read? Yes. And then I get in there and I'm like, most of you people aren't heavy metal, I get it, but there's a band that I like. Actually out of Riverside called Suicide Silence. And one of their tunes is called Live Life Hard. If you read that one, look up the lyrics. But I'm just like, right? Live life hard. I'm not going to go in there and just be like, ladies and gentlemen, at the MGM Grand Casino, let's get ready to rumble. No, they're getting the real deal. And that's what I did. And because of it, I was able to book it and have one of my favorite, one of the most amazing experiences of flying somewhere and filming for a week. It was really cool. So anyway, I guess I digress, but I'm just sharing this story because I'm here doing cardio with a couple of dogs looking at me, holding the fort down, thinking about barbecue, and yeah, just reaching out with hopefully a story that will show you that if you go that little extra mile, sometimes good things can happen. There is no fate but what you make. Isn't that what they said in the Terminator? Well, I'm saying I just go out and try to make my own fate by working hard. Thanks everybody for watching my little rant on how I booked and battled. Take care.